Welcome to this video, which will help you understand your child's report. I'm Miss Charles and I'm Vice Principal here at Harris Academy Chafford 100 and I oversee the curriculum and assessment. This video aims to give you more detail about how our curriculum is assessed, why we assess students, and Miss Kanife, our Assistant Principal for Key Stage 3, will give some more detail on how to read your child's report. We are committed to ensuring our curriculum is broad and ambitious for all learners, which is why we think really hard about your child's future. We believe that knowledge is power and we want to make it stick. We think really hard about what knowledge we teach in our curriculum, which is why we think at the beginning about the future of your child. We think about ambitious university courses, competitive apprenticeships, the big dreams that your child might have for the future, and we work backwards from those outcomes to think about what we need to teach your child to ensure that they can dream big. And therefore we think really carefully about how we design our curriculum to be ambitious. Not only that, but we also think really hard and work with our primary colleagues to make sure that we think about how our curriculum builds from primary school and builds on the great work that our colleagues in primary schools do. This means that our curriculum is what we call a progression model. This means that it gets more challenging in every year group. The challenge progresses, it gets tougher. Whether that is with more challenging reading materials, challenging knowledge, a range of vocabulary that builds throughout the year groups, over time, ultimately, we're committed to ensuring that the curriculum is knowledge rich and builds in ambition and challenge. And this is evident in the range of different experiences and knowledge your child will learn, whether that's different complex dishes in food, rich scientific knowledge that develops in science, diverse writers in English. And not only do we think carefully about what we teach, we also want to make sure it sticks, right? We want students to remember the curriculum. We want to know that our young people go on to live a life where they recall the richness of their school experience, are able to have academic conversations, relying on some of the knowledge and vocabulary they've learned with us, so they can be successful and happy. So why do we have school assessments and reports? What is the power of these tools within the curriculum? Well, they are useful parts of our curriculum because they help us understand if this important knowledge in the curriculum is sticking. It's important to consider why we have assessments at all. And there are three main reasons why assessments are useful at school. The first is that assessments can be a useful tool to provide important feedback to the learner so they know how to improve. The second reason is to help you, the parent or carer, to understand how well the student is understanding the curriculum. It can help you have those important conversations with your child about effort, homework, areas where they need support. And finally, and arguably the most important, these assessments help teachers act on any gaps in knowledge and reteach your child and offer additional support. Importantly, we want to make clear what assessments are not intended to be for here at Harris Academy Chafford 100. Well, they are not aimed to put unnecessary pressure on learners. They are not used to make judgments about learners, give them a grade that sticks with them, for example, for the whole of their career with us. They're certainly not relied on as the only evidence about a learner's progress and knowledge. We look at books, we speak to children, we're in lessons with them every day. So we use a range of information to understand how well they're learning our curriculum. So what kind of assessments happen in school? Well, there are two main types of assessment that children experience. Firstly, we use lots of formative assessments. Formative assessments are mini assessments and ways to quiz and find out what children know live in the lesson. These kind of assessments are low stakes, help students to learn and practice. They happen continuously throughout a year group or a course or a key stage, and they help teachers identify any gaps so that they can reteach content. The second type of assessment is the type that we report home about. It's a summative assessment which is used as a checkpoint to assess a student's performance. Now, the most formal type of summative assessment are those that take place at the end of a learning period, like a GCSE exam, an A-level exam, or the SATs, a very formal summative assessment. And they collect evidence of how well the student has accumulated knowledge or skill or proficiency over time. Now, we use these at the Academy occasionally to catch up on how our children are doing. So formative assessments are part of the learning process. Summative assessments tend to happen at the end of a learning process and give us a bit more information on how the child is progressing. However, and this is a big however, at Harris Academy, we see all assessments as formative really until those final big exams at GCSE and A-level, because all assessments are used to help us teach better, for you to support children and have a conversation, and to give feedback to children so they can improve. So although we report home regularly, we make sure that we don't talk about these big assessments too much, because really they're just another way that we check if students understand the curriculum. So those everyday mini quizzes I spoke of, they don't really get reported home to you. They're low stakes, we do them every lesson, and they're just there to help children remember knowledge. But those bigger summative assessments that we have twice a year, we do report home, because it's really useful for you as parents and carers to get a snapshot of where your child is at. Let me tell you a little bit more about those bigger assessments. Well, they are designed to help your child like this. When your child sits that assessment, they'll find that the assessment is cumulative. This means that they test on everything that they've learned since year 7. Why? Well, we want our curriculum to be remembered over time, as it's planned by experts who have degrees in each subject, and they know the subject well, and they know a lot of powerful knowledge to help them excel in the future. We also make sure that there are multiple sections to our assessments, so your child will have some quizzes, some written elements or practical elements. And this is to understand the gaps in students' knowledge in a range of areas of the subject, so we can teach even better. Our assessments are also completed in silent exam conditions. This is just to ensure students can focus and that the test reflects their ability. They also assess knowledge that they have learned, that they have been taught. Giving students random tests on new knowledge or big skills questions that they've not been explicitly taught doesn't help students learn. So they'll only ever be quizzed and assessed on what they've actually been taught. And finally, assessments are always appropriate to age and stage. You'll never find GCSE materials or A-level materials in the younger years, 7, 8 and 9, because actually this doesn't help students get better. Assessments are designed bespoke for year groups so that we can really assess on what they've been taught and make sure that they're progressing through the curriculum. And therefore, our teachers spend a long time designing assessments that are fit for purpose. So when your child sits one of those longer summative assessments, they'll be assessed on the whole curriculum and they'll have support on those questions. And this support will become less and less and will mean the assessment becomes more and more challenging as your child moves through the year groups into different key stages. And here you can see some examples. So how often do children get assessed? Well, in summary, there are 2 summative tests a year as progress points for reporting home. However, every lesson we assess students in a low stake, simple way to help them remember the curriculum. Teachers use lots of checking for understanding tools and lessons, mini whiteboards, feedback, looking at books to constantly be assessing what has been remembered and help them plan to close any knowledge gaps. So, now that we're a bit clear on the assessment process, what is reported home to you?
Here you can see an example of a report that parents and carers will receive about their child. You will receive a report like this twice in a year. What you will notice firstly is their year group and their home group if they are in Key Stage 3 still, as well as their head of year's name with an email to contact that person. There will be some useful contextual information about your child to begin with. If I can refer you to the top right here, you can see their total merits so far, which speaks to how they show our important character traits here at Hatch. You will also see your child's attendance score here. Now, most students attend more than 98% of the time, and many students do attend 100% of the time. So if your child's attendance score is below this, it will significantly impact their education. So do reflect on this with your child. You will also notice their most recent reading age has been assigned if they've been recently tested in their reading. Reading ages relate to chronology. So, for example, a reading age here of 16 tells us this student is reading at 16 years and 0 months old at the moment. If your child's reading age is below their actual age, supporting your child with reading will help them to improve. We have many strategies in school and on our website to support with this. You will also notice a forecast grade on the top left of the report. You will see this for all key stages. An aspirational forecast grade helps us to enshrine high expectations between the school, child and family as to what the child could go on to do given the right conditions. Forecast grades are assigned to students on entry using their Key Stage 2 SATs data. We look at likely outcomes for children from a particular starting point and increase that grade to build on our ambition for all children to do well. At Key Stage 5, this grade is set based on GCSE results. For those learners who joined during the pandemic, we internally assess them with reading and spelling tests, maths, English, science tests, CATs and primary information in order to set their forecast grades. In the case of secondary school age children, we recognise that setting a forecast grade relying on some data from when a child was 10 or 11 isn't necessarily a measure on how they will do exactly at GCSE, especially more recently where experiences through the pandemic affected children differently. This is why we factor in other elements too. We make sure it is aspirational and rely on additional information such as primary information and regularly review it throughout their time with us. But most importantly, we do not talk about these forecast grades with learners, especially our younger learners, all of the time. This is because we are much more passionate about talking to our learners about knowledge, what is to be learned, additional feedback, rather than obsessing over specific progress grades. Talking to your child about forecast grades becomes increasingly more appropriate once they are at exam age. Therefore, it is more useful to focus on some of the individual subject level information. This will help you to get curious with your child about their attitude, effort, and abilities. We monitor students' attitude to learning in each subject area. Attitude to learning will be 4 stars for excellence, down to 1 star for poor effort. Raw score. This is the percentage result that your child received in their most recent subject assessment for this subject area. The raw score percentage is just one of the factors the teacher will use when monitoring your child's progress over time. If a 0 is displayed for a subject, this may indicate that your child was not present for this particular classroom assessment, and their teacher will liaise with them regarding this if they have not done so already. So, if you know what your child is capable of, their scores in tests, and their attitude in each subject area, what about a grade for each subject? In exam years, we award a TMLG to give you more information about your child's progress in each subject. This is the grade that the teacher believes, in their professional opinion, the learner is most likely to achieve at the end of year 11 or the end of year 13 at sixth form, based on their current performance in the year they are in. This is likely to be informed by a variety of factors, including their most recent assessment, classwork, homework, previous assessments, and their attitude to learning. Performance in subjects is graded 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, with 0 being the lowest and 9 the highest. Or A star to U, with A star being the highest and U being the lowest. Again, this is useful to gain some insight into your child's progress. Key Stage 3 don't receive these TMLGs? Well, that's right. It's not appropriate to award a TMLG at Key Stage 3, as they are not in exam years. But we know that it's useful to understand how well they are doing in relation to their year group, Therefore, we give you information to help you understand in which quartile of the year this recent assessment score sits. Ultimately, does this score and their performance put them in the top 25% of the year, the next 25%, the next, or the bottom 25%? And if you're not sure what this means, there is also a comment to clearly highlight if your child is on track, below, or above where we'd expect them to be based on their forecast grade and their ability within their group. So what have we said in short? We intentionally do not put too much emphasis on target grades, talk about grades, and unnecessary assessments happening at Hatch, because it takes our emphasis away on what really matters, looking after your child and teaching them really well. Ultimately, this is what has the impact to help them succeed over time. We do report home twice a year, and although information from assessments can be confusing to understand, really looking at if your child is where we would expect is putting 4 stars of effort and is attending school is the main driver of what conversations should be happening at home. We put a lot of thinking into our planning of the curriculum to give your child a broad and ambitious curriculum so they can live well-rounded lives and achieve their full potential. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about our approach to assessments and reporting across key stages at Hatch. If there are any questions that still remain for you, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us using some of the key individuals that are named on screen. All staff can be contacted via our school website and the email addresses that are linked there. Thank you.